sharp opposition made between personality and impersonality. This is quite a big problem in the spiritual field. There are so many philosophies which say that there is no personal aspect of God. Okay, so we can start reading.
Yes. Wait, not just minutes. Wait. I'm getting it.
Your voice is not clear.
Hello, my voice is not clear?
Yeah, now it may be clear. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. I'm um, the sharp opposition made between personality and impersonality by our mental way of thinking is a creation of the mind based on the appearances of the material world. For here in terrestrial existence, the inconscient from which everything takes its origin appears as something entirely impersonal. Nature, the inconscient energy, is entirely impersonal in her manifest essence and dealings. All forces bear this mask of impersonality, all qualities and power. Sorry, I lost the page. Hmm, wait a minute.
367.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Uh, just in this cell phone, if we move a little bit here and there, um,
Computers and phones sometimes behave in
system, I think all of them correct. 100% they just change page. Okay, yes. Something entirely impersonal. Nature, the inconscient energy is entirely impersonal in her manifest essence and dealings. All forces wear the mask of impersonality. All qualities and powers, love and delight, and consciousness itself have this aspect. Personality makes its aspiration as a creation of consciousness in an impersonal world. It is the limitation by a restricted formation of powers, qualities, habitual forces of the nature of action, and imprisonment is in a limited circle of self experience which we have to transcend. To lose personality is necessary if we are to gain universality, still more necessary if we are to rise into the transcendence. But what we thus call personality is only a formation of superficial consciousness. Behind it is the person who takes on various personalities, who can have at the same time many personalities but is himself one, real, eternal. If we look at things from a larger point of view, we might say that what is impersonal is only a power of the person existence itself has no meaning without its existence and existence. Consciousness has no standing place if there is none which is conscious delights is useless and invalid without an enjoyer. Love can have no foundation or fulfillment if there is no lover. All power must be odious if there is not an almighty. Now, what we mean by person is conscious being, even if this emerges here as a term or product of the inconscient. It is not that in reality, for it is the inconscient itself that is a term of the secret consciousness. What emerges is greater than that in which it emerges. As a mind is greater than matter, soul, than mind, spirit, no secret of all the supreme emergence, the last revelation is the greatest of all. And spirit is the Purusha, the all person, the omnipresent conscious being. It is the mind's ignorance of this pure personness, its confusion of a person with our experience of ego and limited personality. The misleading phenomenon of the emergence of limited consciousness and personality is an inconscient existence that have made us create an opposition between these two aspects of reality. But in truth, there is no opposition, and eternal, infinite self existence is the supreme reality. But the supreme transcendent eternal being, self and spirit, an infinite person, we may say, because this being is the essence and source of all personality, is the reality and meaning of self-existence. So, to the cosmic self, spirit, being, person is the reality and meaning of the cosmic existence. The same self, spirit, being, or person manifesting its multiplicity is the reality and meaning of individual existence.
Okay, so he is discussing the dualities that exist in the physical world, and here he is dealing with personal and impersonal. And it's a huge issue because there are so many spiritual experiences which say only the impersonal, because first you experience the impersonal. Why is he explaining? He is saying that in the physical world, we see mainly impersonality. The wind blowing is impersonal. There is nobody blowing. So there is just a mechanical force. The sky is infinite, but there is nobody. It is something created by itself. The river flowing, everything is impersonal. So you carry the first impressions into the higher regions also when you go. When you migrate from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness, there is a habit of carrying the past into the present. Okay, it's a very interesting experience, experiment that they made. I just mentioned the experiment, and it is not always true, but it is largely true of human beings. And what is that experiment? They took 20 people, okay, and they told them to sit in a room and they cast an image on the wall. But that image was in the beginning absolutely out of focus. Okay. So each one was asked to think what it could be. So each one, like clouds. In the clouds, some people see formations, some people see human faces, some people see trees and landscapes. Each one is seeing something different. So this experiment of 20 people, they asked them to see what they are seeing in that out of focus picture. And slowly, over a long period of time, maybe 4 hours or even 5 hours, this is an experiment they made. I'm not giving complete details. Slowly, the picture was brought into focus. Now, what are the chances that out of these 20 people, all of them will see the focused image? Or is it possible that some of them will stick to their original idea, even when they are seeing the sharp focus? So this is what they found, that a small percentage of people are still lingering in the first impressions, although this image is sharp. Okay, so this is what Surendra is saying here. In the physical world, we see the impersonal things. We see personality also, but the personality is created by, what is a personality? A living form, okay? A living form, or a human being, or a cat, or a dog. These are personal aspects. They have got features. Personality means features. Impersonality means no features at all. Impersonal without determination. So this is basically what he's saying. But both, now the question arises, are they really eternally separate? Or are they really only one thing seen in different planes of consciousness in different ways? This is what he's discussing. Okay? So keep this in mind and we'll go. Of course, he says that ultimately they are the same, but on different planes you see them in a different way. Okay? Now, with this background, we will start reading the paragraph. It's quite a big paragraph. The sharp opposite. I remind you also how so many philosophies, okay, they rise to the higher mind level and see the impersonal aspect of the. I won't even say divine. It's the, you see vastness, you see freedom, you see peace, you experience calm, you experience everything which there's nobody there, nobody to answer your questions. Okay. Even there are poems also which describe this. Okay. There is one poem by, I think it is Walter de la Mare. It is discussed in the poetry volume. uh, I think that the question starts with, is there anybody there? A horseman comes and asks, is there anybody there? And nobody answers him. Okay? There is no one to answer. In fact, you don't even have question. But if you have a question also, you will not get an answer. It's an impersonal aspect of the divine. Okay? I am saying divine, but they don't even talk of divine. They talk only of a vastness and a peace. So, now we start reading the paragraph. The sharp opposition made between personality and impersonality by our mental way of thinking is a creation of the mind, our mind, based on the appearances of the material world. Very clear, because in the material world we are seeing only appearances and we believe, we make, the mind is always analytical and wants to see opposites. So even when it goes into the higher plane of consciousness, it is sticking to the principle of opposition. Okay? That's what he's saying. For here in terrestrial existence, the inconscient from which everything takes its origin appears as something entirely impersonal. All things are coming up from matter, and matter is something seems to be inconscient, and it is impersonal. There is no personality there. But personality emerges from the impersonal matter. Okay? Nature, the inconscient energy, is entirely impersonal in her manifest essence and dealings. Even when she is producing personal aspects, small individual aspects, she still seems to be in the origin absolutely impersonal. Matter is impersonal, but it is producing personal forms. It is entirely impersonal in manifestations and dealings. All forces wear this mask of impersonality. Even energy, okay, is a impersonal. The storm, there doesn't seem to be a person producing the storm. There doesn't seem to be a person producing the earthquake. Everything is mechanical. All qualities and powers, love and delight and consciousness itself have this aspect. Okay? The aspect of impersonality. Now Selva is saying, now imagine, he's saying that love also can be impersonal. You don't need to love a particular person. You can just feel a vast sympathy for everybody. Sometimes you feel that. Sometimes, for instance, in a patriotic feeling, okay? When China attacks India, everybody unites. Otherwise, we are going on quarreling among ourselves. But when some external force comes, everybody feels that we are one. Okay? This is impersonal. Delight, Ananda also, and consciousness itself have this aspect. Personality makes its apparition as a creation of consciousness in an impersonal world. As soon as matter starts evolving life forms, personality is appearing because individual forms are coming up. That's a personal aspect. Okay? Because personality has got features, size, shape, color, form, characteristics. The impersonal doesn't have all these things. Okay? Personality makes its apparition as a creation of consciousness in an impersonal world. It's a limitation by restricted formation of powers, qualities, habitual forces of nature action, and imprisonment in a limited circle of self-experience which we have to transcend. To lose personality is necessary if we are to gain universality. Still more necessary if we are to rise into transcendence. It's a big sentence. We'll go and see each one, what is meaning. Now, personality makes its apparition in a creation of consciousness in an impersonal world is very clear. Okay? When the impersonal matter is creating life forms, he is creating personal individual forms. And all these individual forms are characteristics. Okay? There is color, size, weight, shape. Okay? All these things are there. It's a limitation by a restricted formation of powers, qualities, habitual forces of nature action. Now understand that. all personality is always a restricted formation. We have discussed this many times. Manifestation into forms is always a limitation. You can't have a form without limitation of the infinite. Again, go back to the idea of the vast store of clay. It has got the potential to create cups and dishes and bowls and whatnot. But if you want to manifest those forms, you have to limit, you have to restrict the amount of clay that you're going to deal with. So that's why restricted formation of what? Restricted what? It can be power, it can be quality, it can be habitual forces of human nature. An imprisonment in a limited circle of self-experience which we have to transcend. So you are the infinite, but you are locked in a body, mind, life, which is a personal aspect, a very, very restricted form. So if you want to go back to where you came from, you have to lose your identity. You have to lose your identity in the form, the personal aspect. Okay? That's what he's saying. So habitual growth, imprisonment. The infinite person in you is imprisoned in a limited circle of self-experience, which we have to transcend. We have to get rid of that form. To lose personality is necessary if we are to gain universality. So, to put this sentence in this phrase in other words, to gain the impersonal vastness and freedom and purity, you have to lose your identification with body, mind, life. That's what it means. Your personality is the body, mind, life because it is personal, limited, a form. And to lose personality is necessary if we are to gain universality, vastness. Still more necessary if we are to rise into the transcendence. So, the universality is a cosmic consciousness, the second one. And the last one is the transcendence, even outside the cosmos. Three levels again, individual, cosmic and transcendent. So you have to absolutely get rid of all form if you want to go into the transcendence. Because there it is infinite, eternal, immutable, featureless. Remember that. But what we thus call personality is only a formation of superficial consciousness. It's like the vast sea which is salty. It is the impersonal. But if it is from there, you can create grains of salt. And that is the form. So this is what he is saying. What we call thus personality, the grain of salt, is only a formation of superficial consciousness. You are taking the vast sea and reducing it to a small grain of sand. So the vast consciousness is infinite divine consciousness. You are bringing it down into your own individual consciousness. So personality is a limitation of the impersonal. In other words, they are the same thing. Behind it is a person who takes on various personalities, who can have at the same time many personalities, but is himself one, real, eternal. This idea of the one becoming the many and becoming limited comes up again and again and again. Yesterday also we were discussing energy is a vast infinite field of prana. But there are energisms. Okay? That means there can be different forms of energy. There can be muscular energy, mechanical energy, there can be chemical energy, there can be nuclear energy, thermonuclear energy. So all these different, there are energisms. So personality, impersonality is the vastness. Personality is the limitation of that into a form. Okay? But they are essentially the same. The impersonality is producing the personality. But what we thus call personality is only a formation of superficial consciousness. Behind it is a person who takes on various personalities. So this is the Ishvara, the Purushottam, who you can experience as infinite as well as finite. Okay? But what we thus call personality is only a formation of superficial consciousness. Behind it is a person who takes on various personalities, who can at the same time, who can have at the same time many personalities, but is himself one, real, eternal. This also again in spiritual experience, if you want to experience the divine, you approach him through a particular form. You think of either Mother, or you think of Sriyamdo, or there are others who think of him as Shiva or Vishnu, okay, or anyway. So you will experience that aspect. If you are a Buddhist, you will want to see Buddha, and you will see the divine as Buddha. That's a personal aspect. If you are a Christian, you are likely to have experiences with either Christ or Mother Mary. Okay? It's not uncommon. There are many experiences like that. Saint Bernadette, for instance, she used to see the Mother Mary, okay? The Immaculate Mother. So, personality and impersonality. But they are really the same. That's what Swami is saying. If we look at things from a larger point of view, not from the mental terrestrial point of view, we might say that what is impersonal is only a power of the person. Or if you want to look at the other way, existence itself has no meaning without an existent. Okay? So existence is impersonal. Existent is one who is existing, a person. Consciousness has no standing place if there is none who is conscious. Delight is useless and invalid without an enjoyer. Love can have no foundation or fulfillment if there is no lover. All power must be otiose, useless, okay, without substance, if there is not an Almighty. So they are very much connected. That's what we'll be saying. For what we mean by person is conscious being. A conscious being is a person. Whenever you use the word conscious being, remember he is talking of the Purusha, the person. Even if this emerges here as a term or product of the inconscient, it may be coming from there, but it is based in the impersonal. It is not that in reality. It is not the limited form in reality. It is the infinite. For it is the inconscient itself that is a term or a secret consciousness. What emerges is greater than that in which it emerges. What emerges from the secret consciousness is greater than that in which it emerges. The individual emerges from matter, but he is greater than matter. And from the cosmic consciousness also, what comes out afterwards is the Ishvara consciousness, which is superior to the universal consciousness. Gradation. As mind is greater than matter, soul then spirit. So he is explaining further what he said. Mind is greater than matter because mind has come out of matter. And soul is greater than mind. So this gradation that he is talking about. Most secret of all, the supreme emergence, the last revelation, is the greatest of all. The spirit, and spirit is the Purusha, the all person, the omnipresent conscious being. These words are all you can substitute by Ishvara or the Purushottama. Spirit is the Purusha, the all person, the omnipresent conscious being. It is the mind's ignorance of this true person in us, its confusion of person with the experience of ego. There you are, and limited personality, the misleading phenomenon of the emergence of limited consciousness and personality in an inconscient existence that have made us create an opposition between these two aspects of the reality. But in truth, there is no opposition. An eternal, infinite self-existence is the supreme reality. But the supreme, transcendent, eternal being, self and spirit, an infinite person, we may say, because his being is the essence and source of all personality, is the reality and meaning of self-existence. So too the cosmic self, spirit, being, person, is the reality and meaning of cosmic existence. The same self, spirit, being or person, manifesting its multiplicity, is the reality and the meaning of individual existence. The problem of personality and impersonality starts because we have an ego. So That is the whole problem, because we identify individuality with ego. It's an extremely interesting thing when you think about it. What is the difference between ego and individuality? Individuality is a true essential being. But when you have lost that, the nature replaces that with the ego. You centralize your consciousness into a particular form so that you can act on a limited basis in the physical world. So it's a very interesting, but if you go into that again, it may create some confusion. But I'll do one thing. I'll quickly try and sum up the difference between ego and individuality. Now, when the infinite becomes the finite in the physical world, it is limiting itself. Okay? So the infinite has become finite. The one has become the many. The one infinite has become the many infinitesimals. Okay? So now, which is the lowest infinitesimal? The atom. Does it have an individuality? Yes, because it is limited. Okay? But is there any ego in it? There is no ego. It's an impersonal thing. Impersonal form. Now, when that slowly evolves and comes, the first forms are unicellular creatures, small insects. Okay, then you have some greater insects, caterpillars and insects and whatnot. Okay, worms. Even they have the individuality in the sense that they are unconscious of their individuality, but there is an individual because there is a form, size, shape, color, characteristics. Now you go to a slightly higher level, cats and dogs. Do they have an individuality? Individuality in the sense of a form, that is there. But does the ego start there? At the animal level also, the ego starts at a very, very low level because it is conscious of its own existence. It fights for its food, it fights for its mate. So there is an insistence on its own existence. Now you come to man. Okay? He becomes conscious of his individuality, but not the true individuality. So there in man, ego and the true individuality is replaced by the ego. That's the thing. In human beings, the ego is fully developed. In animals, the ego is just beginning. Okay? Now, when you make your mind silent and you become a yogi and go, the ego disappears, the false individuality, and you become the true individual. Now, the true individual is infinite. It does not have form and shape and color. Yet, there is someone who is experiencing that infinity. That's a true individual. Then there is a state where even the individuality can disappear and you become the infinite. So there is a gradation from matter right up to the highest level. Okay? It's a very interesting thing, and the more you think about ego, individuality, and personality and impersonality, there is a gradation right from the lowest to the highest. And ego is a formation of nature which helps the individual to grow, centralize his consciousness, centralize his action, and make it an individual separated action. Okay? So, now, we have discussed in great detail this paragraph between personality and impersonality. I went into details because Sridhar's language. Now, I'll do one thing. I'll read out the summary of what he's saying, so we'll get it in the gist. Okay? What we read just now, the summary of it. The sharp division between personal and impersonal is a creation of our ignorant, limited mind. There is actually no opposition between the two. In the physical universe, we start from the inconscious, which is impersonal. Nature too seems completely impersonal. Wind, light, waves, etc. Everywhere we see, we perceive the impersonal. Even qualities seem to have the quality of impersonality. Love, delight, force, strength. Okay? Then personality emerges with consciousness, life forms, which seem to come from the inconscient. But this is an illusion because consciousness is inward, inherent in the inconscious. We may say that the impersonality is a quality of the person because consciousness has no meaning without a conscious being, love has no sense without a lover, bliss has no standing ground without an enjoyer. Inconscience produces a series of increasingly conscious beings. With consciousness comes personality. Personality is hidden in the inconscient, then emerges increasingly, and in man attains its maximum status in the form of ego. Next, personality must disappear into the impersonality. Man becomes universal in his consciousness. Then finally, the Supreme Person, the Ishvara, is both personal as well as impersonal. There is no basic difference, but you see this truth only at the highest level. In the middle levels, there is a difference between the two. In the spiritual planes of consciousness, they seem to be totally different. Either you experience impersonality or you experience personality. Personality in the spiritual planes of consciousness, that is rare. Okay? Whereas in the supermind, they become both the same. In the overmind, you see both. You see the personality as well as the impersonality, which you don't in the spiritual planes of consciousness in the lower level. But in the overmind, you see both, but they are different. In the supermind, they are not different anymore. They become one. Okay? That's what he's saying in the paragraph. Read it. Now we have about 10 minutes. No, we have nearly 15 minutes. 25.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
I think ego, personality, and impersonality could be another topic for your essay.
Okay, we'll consider that. All right. Yeah. The next one is what I'm doing is Purusha and Prakriti. After that, maybe personality and impersonality can be taken up. Thank you for the suggestion because I need suggestions. Yeah, it's a good idea. We could do that. Okay. So, all right. So, I'm closing and we have got just enough time, I think, to read one more para. If we admit the divine being. So, can we read that? It's about a page. We can read. So, who will read? Either Jasmine or.
Do you want me to read?
Yes, go ahead, Jasmine.
If we admit the divine being, the supreme person and all persons and all person as the Ishvara, a difficulty arises in understanding his rule or government of world existence because we immediately transfer to him our mental conception of a human ruler. We picture him as acting by the mind and mental will in an omnipotent, arbitrary fashion upon a world on which he imposes his mental conceptions as law, and we conceive of his will as a free caprice of his personality. But there is no need for the divine being to act by an arbitrary will or idea as an omnipotent yet ignorant human being. If such an omnipotence were possible, might do, for he is not limited by mind. He has an all consciousness in which he is aware of the truth of all things and aware of his all wisdom, working them out according to the truth that is in them, their significance, their possibility or necessity, the imperative selfness of their nature. The divine is free and not bound by laws of any making, but still he acts by laws and processes because they are the expression of the truth of things. not their mechanical, mathematical, or other outward truths alone, but the spiritual reality of what they are, what they have become and have yet to become, what they have it within themselves to realize. He is himself present in the working, but he also exceeds and can overrule it. For on one side, nature works according to her limited complex of formulae and is informed and supported in their execution by the divine presence. But on the other side, there is an overseeing, a higher working and determination, even an intervention, free but not arbitrary, often appearing to us magical and miraculous because it proceeds and acts upon nature from a divine supernature. Nature here is a limited expression of that supernature and open to intervention or mutation by its light, its force, its influence. The mechanical, mathematical, automatic law of things is a fact, but within it, there is a spiritual law of consciousness at work which gives to the mechanical steps of nature's forces an inner turn and value, a significant rightness, and a secretly conscious necessity, and above it, there is a spiritual freedom that knows and acts in the supreme and universal truth of the Spirit. Our view of the divine government of the world or of the secret of its action is either incurably anthropomorphic or else incurably mechanical. Both the anthropomorphism and mechanism have their elements of truth, but they are only a side, an aspect. And the real truth is that the world is governed by the one in all and over all who is infinite in his consciousness. And it is according to the law and logic of an infinite consciousness that we ought to understand the significance and building and movement of the universe.
This whole paragraph is based on the idea of anthropomorphy. You must understand what is meant by anthropomorphy. So, the word anthropomorphic means, anthropomorphy is the attribution of human qualities to that which is not human. Okay? And it is not only to God. When we think of God, normally in the beginning, we always think of God as a person. But in a person, in human beings, we have limitations. But this God, this person, has no limitations. And yet we think of him in terms of the human being. He can be pleased, he can be angry, he can be satisfied, he can be propitiated, he can be bribed. Okay, that's why you go to the temple and give money so that your desires are satisfied. You think that he will do that. He can be propitiated, he can be bribed. That is what you feel. So this is the anthropomorphy. And by the way, the anthropomorphy does not necessarily mean something only gods. The whole concept also of you, if you see Tom and Jerry cartoons, you are attributing human qualities to animals, cats and dogs. Okay? Very interesting. And that is why we have the Panchatantra. Okay? All the moral stories are told through animal stories. This is also a form of anthropomorphism. And in the West, you have Aesop's fables, which is the same thing, almost like the Panchatantra. Okay? So, stories based on animal forms, and to whom you are attributing human qualities. But there is another thing. Attribution of divine qualities to human beings, and that is called anthropolatry. You anthropolatry. Now you are attributing divine qualities to the human being. Okay? That is very much in the Indian conception, that the human being is essentially divine. Okay? So these are the two words that he is discussing, and we have only 6 minutes. we don't have enough time to discuss, but we can quickly have a look at what he's saying. Okay? When you see, if we admit the divine being, so in the beginning with if we admit, just see, here, he always, as I told you, he's not imposing his views on anybody. He's just suggesting, okay, if we start from this hypothesis, this is the conclusion we can have. You are free to have any hypothesis you want, but this is how it can be seen. This is his language. If we admit the divine being, the supreme person and all person as the Ishvara, a difficulty arises in understanding his rule or government of world existence, because we immediately transfer to him our mental conception of a human ruler, like a king. Okay? He is a king and he is ruling his kingdom. What is his kingdom? The universe. So he has created the universe and is ruling it. And he would behave exactly like a king. This is anthropomorphism. We picture him as acting by the mind and mental will in an omnipotent, arbitrary fashion upon a world on which he imposes his mental conceptions as laws, and we conceive of his will as a free caprice of his personality. So he can do what he wants. He does not give any reasons. Like the king also does not give reasons. In my view, this is the right thing, so it has to be done. So this is caprice. Okay? So he uses the word arbitrary fashion. He has got full power, he is omnipotent and is acting in an arbitrary fashion upon a world on which he imposes mental conceptions as laws, and we conceive of his will as a free caprice of his personality. Now, is it really a caprice? No, because he is doing it through laws. And what are these laws? They are inherent truths. That is the way things are. So that is the laws. Okay? So, but there is no need for the divine being to act by an arbitrary will or idea, or as an omnipotent yet ignorant human being. If he is omnipotent and yet we conceive of him as an ignorant human being, if such an omnipotence were at all possible, because omnipotence is infinite, therefore there can be no human limitation. If one infinite aspect is there, the other aspects also are infinite. He has an all consciousness in which he is aware of the truth of all things and aware of his own wisdom, of his own all wisdom, working them out according to the truth that is in them, their significance, their possibility or necessity, the imperative selfness of their nature. These words, again, you can understand very well by the seed and the tree. The seed is going to manifest only that which is in it. It's a law. A tamarind tree will not produce a chico tree. It goes according to laws, fixity of nature. And these fixities are not arbitrary conceptions or arbitrary ways of doing. No, the truth that is there in the tamarind tree seed will produce the tamarind tree. That's what Sri is mentioning here. That which is the essence comes out into the form. That's basically what you say. So, the divine is free and not bound by laws of any making. But still, he acts by laws and processes because they are the expression of the truth of things, not their mechanical, mathematical, or other outward truth alone. Now, we can understand mechanical. Why is he saying mathematical? It's very interesting. Okay? Because if you see the physical world, these laws that operate are often mathematical. It's very interesting. Okay, so you will see that in mathematics, all the laws that are there in mathematics are followed in nature. Okay, I'll give you one or two examples. Okay, for instance, the Earth going around the sun, it doesn't go around in a circle. It goes around in an ellipse. Okay, because the sun is situated in a not in the center, but in the one of the focal points of the ellipse. Okay, If those who know mathematics will appreciate this. Okay. If you take, it's very interesting. If you take two pins and put them on the table, okay, fix them on the table, and take a thread, okay, and take a thread, a loop of thread, and put it around the two pins and draw it, and there is a pencil fixed to the thread, and if you draw that, you will get an ellipse. There are two focal points. In a circle, there is only one focal point. But in an ellipse, there are two focal points. It becomes like that. Okay? A circle is very, very clearly one focal point, one center. But for an ellipse, it's two. And that this is what happens in the astronomical bodies. They go according to elliptical movement. Then I'll give you another instance, very interesting. The mathematical series. Okay? There is a arithmetic series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? But there is a geometric progression. The geometric progression is you are squaring the number every time. 1 into 1 is 2. 2 into 2 is not 3 but 4. And 4 into 4 is not 5, 6, 7 but 16. 16 into 16 gives 32. It goes on like that. This is the geometric progression. This also can be seen in the evolution. As it goes, it becomes faster and faster and faster. Then there is another one, okay? It's called the Fibonacci series. 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Then 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. Like that it goes on increasing. This is exactly what happens in shells, seashells. If you see a seashell, its form is following the Fibonacci mathematical formula. So Swami is adding mathematical not just like that. Okay? He is saying that nature follows mechanical and mathematical laws. That's what he's saying. We'll have to stop here today, and next week we'll continue this one. So you'll have to make a note.
Hello.
Yes, tell me.
What was that word you said? Divine qualities attributed to human beings is
Anthropolatry. Polatry. It's not a very common word. Sometimes you won't even find in the dictionary.
Okay, thank you.
And anthropolatry is the opposite. Attribution of divine qualities to man. Same though uses the word somewhere. Okay?
Merci beaucoup.
Okay. So let's.
Thank you, Rangata.
Okay.
Thank
Okay, Geeta. Okay, Yasmin.
you.
Chanali, everybody, au revoir. Have a nice day.